I'm your everyday kind of guy who's been through quite a journey, especially as a dad. I remember when my son Tommy was born. It was a game changer, the moment that reshaped your life. My wife Linda and I were thrilled. We had been waiting for this, planning and dreaming about our future as a family. I was so proud and happy the day he arrived that I thought I might burst. Linda and I were over the moon. But life throws you curveballs. When Tommy was just 5, Linda got sick. It was sudden, and despite all the doctors did, she passed away. It broke my heart, not just for me, but for Tommy. He was so young that he'd have to grow up without his mum. From that point on, it was just the two of us. I had to step up and fill both shoes the best I could. I'm not going to say it was easy. There were tough days, adamant ones. But there were good days too, lots of them. I worked whatever jobs I could to keep us afloat and give Tommy a decent life. We didn't have much, but we made the most of everything. Raising a boy on your own is a challenge. You're the cook, the cleaner, the tutor, the friend, and the disciplinarian all at once. I tried to teach him right from wrong, honesty and care about others. We talk about everything under the sun. I wanted him to feel he could come to me with anything. Time flew by, and before I knew it, Tommy was all grown up and ready for university. I was so proud watching him go off to college. It felt like I'd done something right. Seeing him stand there, ready for his new life, I knew all the struggles, all the late nights and early mornings, were worth it. Life didn't turn out as planned, not by a long shot, but I did my best, which is all anyone can do. Tommy going to university was a significant milestone, a sign that he was on his way, and me, I keep going, taking life one day at a time, hoping I've prepared him well for whatever comes next. Tommy's world expanded in ways I never anticipated as life marched on. During his 3rd year at university, he met Sarah, a cheerful young woman studying psychology. Their connection was instant, a bond formed over shared interests and long conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning. It wasn't long before Tommy brought her home during a semester break, and from the moment she walked through our door, I knew she was special. Sarah had a warmth about her that lit up the room. She was kind, with a bright smile and a laugh that made you want to join. As a father, you hope to see your child find someone who looks at them the way Sarah looked at Tommy, like they were the only 2 people in the world. I was taken by her sincerity and her obvious affection for my son. Our families met shortly after that first visit, and it seemed fate that everyone got along so well. Sarah's parents were just as welcoming and shared the same values we held dear. Her father was an engineer and her mother a school teacher, both devoted to their community and family. It wasn't just Tommy and Sarah who connected, our families too. We started organising gatherings, dinners, barbecues, and even a few weekend getaways. Each event was an opportunity to bond and blend our lives more seamlessly. The laughter and chatter that filled these occasions were proof of Tommy, Sarah, and everyone around them's joyous union. The highlight of that year was a trip we all took together to the mountains. The crisp air and the sprawling landscapes were nature at their finest, and they gave us all a chance to escape the hustle and bustle of daily life. We rented a large cabin, and the days were filled with hiking, storytelling, and cooking meals together. Evenings were spent around the fireplace, where we shared stories of our pasts, our dreams for the future, and plenty of laughter. During these moments, I felt a profound sense of peace and happiness, watching Tommy and Sarah together, so in love. As months turned into years, their relationship grew more assertive. Sarah became a fixture in Tommy's life, and mine as well. She was there for the big moments, like Tommy's graduation, and the small ones, like helping me figure out how to use the latest smartphone. Her presence reminded us how the right person can bring new energy and joy. Their engagement came as no surprise. Tommy proposed on a quiet, star-lit night at the same mountain cabin where we shared so much joy. He wanted it to be meaningful, a tribute to their journey together and with all of us. The wedding planning began, and it was a whirlwind of excitement and activity. Sarah's creative touch and Tommy's attention to detail made for a beautiful process. They wanted a celebration that reflected their love for each other and their families and friends. The wedding itself was a beautiful affair, held in a lovely garden that Sarah had chosen. It was a perfect spring day, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the sound of music. Watching them exchange vows, my heart swelled with pride and joy. It wasn't just the union of Tommy and Sarah, but the coming together of lives, histories, and dreams. Looking back, I realize how blessed I am. Life threw challenges my way, but it also brought incredible joy. Watching Tommy find such an excellent partner in Sarah and seeing our families unite is more than I could have ever asked for. The dinners, the tours, and the simple evenings spent together weave into the fabric of our shared history a tapestry of love and connection that continues to grow with each passing day. Life has a way of evolving just when you think you've settled into a rhythm. Tommy landed a job abroad shortly after marrying Sarah, a fantastic opportunity in his field that he couldn't turn down. It was a prestigious position in Europe that promised new challenges and great rewards. The catch, of course, was the distance it would put between him and his new family. Still, they were a strong couple, full of dreams and determination, and together they decided it was too good an opportunity to pass up. Sarah was supportive, fully backing Tommy's decision to move temporarily while she stayed back to manage things at home. They figured out a plan. Tommy would fly back once a month, a manageable routine given his company's generous travel allowances. This arrangement seemed perfect in theory, balancing career ambition and family commitment. Their love was soon to be blessed even further. Sarah became pregnant. The news brought immense joy and also a bit of apprehension, given the physical distance between them. Nevertheless, they moved forward optimistically, decorating the nursery, choosing names, and preparing for a new life chapter. The baby, a beautiful little girl named Lily, was born on a serene April morning. Tommy was there, having scheduled his work so he could be by Sarah's side for the birth. Those first few days as a family of three were filled with indescribable joy. Tommy's departures were always challenging, but the reunions were sweet. He was present, immersing himself fully in his daughter's world during his visits. However, as months passed, the once regular monthly visits became less frequent. His job demanded more of him, and slowly his commitments began to overshadow his initial intentions. Sarah noticed the change first in his calls and messages. They became shorter, more perfunctory. The warmth seemed to drain away, replaced by a briskness unlike Tommy. His time at home also changed. Where he used to rush back to spend every possible moment with Sarah and Lily, he now seemed distracted, often taking calls from work during family outings and seeming mentally distant even when he was physically present. The strain began to show. Sarah felt increasingly isolated, handling the everyday challenges of motherhood alone. She tried to discuss her feelings with Tommy, hoping to bridge the growing gap, but the conversations often ended in reassurances from Tommy that were well-meaning but felt hollow. He promised to try harder and be more present, but the cycle repeated, with good intentions slowly eroded by professional demands. Tommy's behaviour started showing more worrying signs. He was often irritable during his visits, starkly contrasting his usual easygoing nature. Discussions about the future, once a common and exciting topic, now frustrate him. Sarah worried that the pressure of his job was too much, changing him in ways neither had anticipated. The transformation was palpable. During one particular visit, Tommy spent a whole afternoon on calls, barely acknowledging Lily's attempts to show him her new drawings, something that would have delighted him months before. That evening, Sarah confronted him, tears in her eyes, holding a drawing Lily had made of the family together, something that was becoming a rarity. The conversation that night was long and fraught with emotion. Tommy admitted feeling overwhelmed, torn between his responsibilities and his desire to be a good husband and father. Sarah expressed her loneliness and the burden of single parenthood in his absence. They talked until the early hours, unpacking months of hurt and misunderstanding, trying to find their way back to each other. As it turned out, the hope that Tommy would find a job closer to home was just that. Hope. Despite his promises and their long, heartfelt discussions, the following months were more similar. His visits remained sporadic, and his attention during those times seemed increasingly divided. Each time Sarah brought up the subject, Tommy had a new set of excuses. Urgent projects, important meetings, an indispensable role only he could fulfill. His words were persuasive, each excuse seemingly reasonable, but they piled into a mountain of broken promises. The distance grew, not just in miles, but in their relationship. Sarah tried to keep the spirit of their family alive, sending him pictures and videos of Lily's milestones, her first steps, her first words. Moments that Tommy missed. His responses were loving but brief, always ending with promises to make it up to them. Yet, as the weeks turned into months, Sarah's heart grew heavier with the realization that those promises were just empty words. My doubts and worries about Tommy's situation intensified. I decided it was time to see what was really going on. Without telling Tommy, I booked a flight and headed to the city where he was supposed to be working tirelessly. What I found there shattered me. Tommy was living in a well-appointed apartment, but not alone. He had a companion, a woman who seemed to share much more than his space. I confronted him there amidst the stark evidence of his infidelity. The confrontation was painful, marked by a mix of denial and indifference from Tommy. I returned home, a heavy burden of truth weighing on my shoulders. It took me days to gather the courage to tell Sarah. She deserved the truth, no matter how much it would hurt. When I finally sat her down and explained what I had discovered, her reaction was a mix of shock, pain, and a profound sense of betrayal. I could see the hurt in her eyes, the struggle to accept that the life and love she believed in were so starkly different from reality. I advised her, as gently as I could, to consider her and Lily's future seriously. "Sarah," I said, "you and Lily deserve happiness and a life free of deceit. It might be time to think about building that life without Tommy." It was one of the most challenging conversations I've ever had, but I believed it was necessary for her and her daughter's well-being. Sarah took time to think it over and weigh her life with Tommy against the potential for a new start. In the end, she decided to file for divorce. When Tommy learned of it, his reaction was cold, almost indifferent. It was as if the family he once loved no longer mattered to him. Months passed, and karma seemed to catch up with Tommy. His performance at work, likely affected by his personal life, declined significantly. Eventually, he was let go from his position. With no job and no family to turn to, he returned to the place he once called home. But I could not let him walk back into our lives as if nothing had happened. I was hurt, not just for myself but for Sarah and Lily. I decided to protect what Linda and I had built and what Sarah and I tried to preserve. I changed the door locks and informed Tommy that he was no longer welcome in the house. Moreover, I took legal steps to ensure that all my property and wealth would go to Sarah and Lily. They were the innocent ones, the family Linda and I had dreamed of nurturing. This decision was not made out of spite, but from a necessity to uphold values I hold dear: honesty, loyalty, and responsibility. It was a stand not just for myself, but for my granddaughter and the daughter-in-law, who had become like a daughter to me. They deserved stability and a life free from the shadows of Tommy's choices. As for Tommy, I hoped one day he would understand and maybe, just maybe, find his way back to being the man I once hoped he would be.